just a little recap from what the market decided to give us from this previous week. What is up, beautiful traders? How you guys doing? I am doing absolutely lovely, especially with that beautiful trading week that we've just had. We had a really good time riding down the selling positions with the selling activity that we were seeing throughout the whole week on Nasdaq, US30, S&P 500, and all the other indices. You know, it was absolutely beautiful. And we are back again with the weekly analysis. Sure, know what's up. And just by looking at these markets, you know, it seems like we have a really smooth week that's coming up. You know, nothing seems too complicated over here. It's kind of like straightforward. But before we jump into all of that, if you're new to the channel, welcome. We trade Nasdaq over here. If you're returning, welcome back. If you know what's up, don't forget to hit the like button, turn your post notifications, and subscribe to the channel. You feel me? Because when we hit 10,000 subscribers, I'm going to be doing a little giveaway, finding 10 different accounts and giving 10 different people free mentorship, right? You don't want to miss that. Okay, traders, it is a new month. You already know what happens every Friday of a new month, right? We have non-farm payrolls on Friday. NFP is up. It is NFP week and we are super excited. But what I want you to notice is we have news every single day of this week, right? It is going to be, you know, it's not going to be much of a smooth, right? Because we have all three head news on every single day, right? And then it is mostly during the New York session. You can see this is when the New York opens. And then we will want to trade around, you know, 5:30 around about the NYSE open, and it's just news every single day, right? So you want to be careful when you see this type of news events in just one single week. You always want to be careful with your money, right? You always have to remember that the goal of trading is to actually just protect your capital, right? But let's just go back onto our chart on Nasdaq. As you can see over here, the craziest thing happened on Friday, right? So we literally had a power move to the downside. The trade was absolutely beautiful. Let me just start by explaining to you guys. So look at what we did. We actually rode this buy from here. We took a buying signal right here, as you can see it running over here, and we rode this buy to the top. And then we took the selling signal from this zone and we rode the sell to, this was our last take profit, right? But it kept dropping such that we held the trade, like, it dropped and dropped until about this zone, right? And then that's not the most exciting thing. Look at how it just reversed from this zone and then just turned back with such a big momentum move like it had over there. And as you can see over here, let's check out our Telegram group. You can see that, like, everything I'm telling you guys, we did everything in the Telegram group over here, right? So obviously the buy, this was the buys. You can see this was the buying signal, and this is the free group, so make sure you are in the group, right? This is the buy that I gave. I first gave it obviously in the inner circle, so this little movement was in the inner circle, right? And then everyone else in the free group can then join the movement after the inner circle has joined. And then this was how the trade, you know, played out so smoothly. Look at how it just tapped to the top right over there. It was absolutely beautiful, right? And then we got to this zone, so we said we are buying to sell. We were buying at this zone so that we could sell, because we had seen the sellers stepping in throughout the whole week, right? So we already knew that we are going to sell, but we couldn't just start selling from this position where it was, right? I always tell you that the market is always going to complete its movement, right? So if you notice at this zone that we are at, right, the market was here on Friday, right? And then we knew that, yes, we are on a selling trend, right? We were on a selling trend. Let me just explain that to you guys. Look and see, we had a little downtrend over here, right? And then the market was here. I knew that the market is not just going to start selling from this zone and start dropping, right? And it had rejected right at the bottom of the Asian session over here. So it was more of a confirmation, you know, that the buyers are stepping in. If we even go on to a much lower time, see, we have a little, you know, indecision candle over here, right? And then we just knew that the buyers are about to step in. And then that's how we ended up taking, you know, that buying signal. And then it completed its move. The market is always going to complete its move. It completed its move. It got to this zone. And then now we start looking for a rejection, right? So we started looking for a rejection at this zone, and this zone was an institutional zone. If we go on to our 15-minute, because I can see I had even marked that zone. You see, we had an institutional zone right over here, and then I just knew that the market taps into my institutional zone and then starts rejecting. I'm going to go in for the selling positions, right? And then that is how we ended up, you know, taking these cells, you know, from this zone. You can see we wrote down the cells, absolutely beautiful over here, and we were just going with the trade like this. It was absolutely beautiful. So we took advantage of all of these selling positions, right? But Back to our weekly analysis. So obviously you know that we want a clear chart. Start by deleting every single thing that we have over here, and I want you to notice, right? Let me switch off my sessions. Let's just notice what happened right on Friday. I want you to notice how the market just went down with so much momentum, right? That was the good thing, but the interesting part is it going back with so much momentum again, right? It has so much aggression. The buyers, they were not taking the sellers pushing the market down, right? They just stepped right in and then pushed it right back. Now let's notice the zone where all of that happened, right? Is it a zone where we are interested in, right? So we go on to our higher time frames. Yes, we can see that it is an institutional zone, but is that all, right? Let's go on to the daily time frame. Now notice, right, this zone on the daily time frame, it was a previous high. It was a previous bank zone, right? You can see, look at it. It came to this zone, and then there are a lot of players that would be here in the market, right? Expecting the market to sit here, form a little build up, play around a little bit, or, you know, and then reject and go back to the top. But then look at how it wicked down first, took out their stop losses, and it then went up to the top. And then notice the fact that it came and sat at a previous resistance and turned it into a support with such an impulsive move, right? That is what you're supposed to be noticing here. It pushed back up to the top with so much momentum, with so much aggression, right? If you notice, when it does that on the other zones, it comes here, plays around a little bit, breaks out, closes outside, and then, you know, does all of that other stuff. When it comes back to retest, it comes back, sits around, but then look at how much momentum it just pushed up to the top with, right? So that being said, we already know that the buyers have stepped in, you know, to this market. They have stepped in back again. They're claiming their position. They're like, no, we are not letting the sellers step in, and we on this zone can try and draw a little trend line, right? You can see that using the wicks, that is a trend line that has already been tapped on, but it hasn't been confirmed, right? So we already know the buyers of the market, and overall we are still on an uptrend if we're looking at this market, right? I said that a downtrend only steps in when we see that it has broken the previous two resistance zones, right? Here it only broke one. It hasn't broke the previous, the second resistance zone, right? So we can go on to our 4-hour time frame. And then on the 4-hour time frame, is it not looking absolutely beautiful? So we are just saying that it came and then it rejected at a bank zone right over here. It rejected at this bank zone, and then it caused it to tap up to the top, right? And then this chart over here, we don't know how it's going to end up closing, right? The market might open with a gap somewhere here or whatever, but then we can already see that the sellers dropped the market to this point of interest, and then the buyers picked it up right over here with this candlestick, right? So we are obviously going to wait for the next candlestick to open at this zone, and then we want to see if it either opens with a gap to the top or a gap to the bottom, or it probably won't even open with a gap, right? But then normally the market opens with a little gap over here, right? And then we already know that we are still biased towards the buying positions. If the market comes back down to retest this trend line over here, as usual, we're going to wait for price action, right, at this particular zone. And then if we go onto our lower time frame, always go to the lower time frame for smaller accounts, right? We can notice that we do have our trend line that we have been, using for the past week, right? We're going to just draw it again over here, and then I was using this as a rough trend line, right? So look at how we have drawn the trend line. So there's a high chance that the market, right, might want to break out of this zone over here. And then, if it breaks out of this zone, right, buying positions will be really tricky because it will have to retest the trend line. So I'm saying we look for buying positions if it comes back around about this zone, right? For now, we can still respect this, trend line over here until it breaks the first resistance, the second resistance, and then we now start looking forward for buying positions. But in the meantime, we can try and look for the rejections over here, and then for the buying positions, if it then rejects and comes here, or it breaks out of this zone, breaks out of where it's currently, and then it starts retesting over here. So we see a breakout of this zone, and then normally it will seem as if it has broken out and then starts moving and then just reverses to come back to this zone, right? That's what normally happens in the market. So you always want to catch it at around about this zone, right? And then we can also use this as a little bank zone when the market comes to the zone. But we should not forget the fact that this is NFP week, right? So we have a lot of news events that are going to be pushing this market, making it so volatile. But then what we are just saying is if we break out of this zone, right, we will not just go in for the buys automatically, right? We're going to wait for the breakout of this zone and then the second zone, and then start looking for the buys after it has broken out of the zone. But then for sellers, we can look for bank zones here and then write it down for the retest, and then, use this bank zone here, price action, for the buys to the top, right? I think this is pretty straightforward, especially if you've been following the analysis from the previous week. You can understand exactly what I'm talking about at the zone over here, right? So nothing too complicated for our analysis for this week. This is a little bias over here. If you notice this zone that we have, we use our horizontal array. You see it kind of like broke out of this zone here, and then it's, a lot of people are now saying that this is now a sell. The sellers have stepped into the market because it broke out of a resistance zone that it had, and then it's rejected at the zone, retested, and then now it's tapping down, right? But then you should not forget the fact that overall we are on an uptrend, right? So the buyers will always still prevail, right? So we want to see a clear breakout of this zone, to know that we are already now going for sales, because it broke the first resistance. If it now breaks the second resistance here, then we know that yes, the sellers have indeed stepped in. But before that, we will still keep looking for these buys, especially at the zones where I told you it should break out of these zones, and then it should come back to these zones for us to look for perfect buying positions, right? But always remember that to be a good trader, you should always use proper risk management. The goal is to always protect your capital, more than it is to make, profits, right? Because if you don't have capital to trade, you won't be able to make these profits, right? So if you did enjoy that video, don't forget to hit the like button, turn your post notifications, and subscribe to the channel. You feel me? With that, it's been Tino, and I'm out. Peace.